Ryan Harsin and the Auburn Tigers doing everything they can to put a tumultuous offseason behind them, including getting on the field, showcasing the talent for 2022. In the annual A-Day game, we've got Kyle Loomis on the line from E2C Network right here on YouTube. And that is your destination for everything, and I mean everything, Auburn. Kyle, how you doing today?
I am doing great. It's always rejuvenating to go back to Auburn's campus and spend a weekend there. Typically, they do a great job of scheduling other things to happen, whether that be a baseball series, which is what was going on here with a big one for Auburn, softball, track and field, and then just what goes on around the town. You know, everybody thinks Auburn's this little podunk town, and it is for the most part. It's growing, but there's still a lot to do and take in, and the university is just beautiful. So after getting a little bit of a refresher on football, I feel rejuvenated for the spring, and it's time to get geared up and excited for what we might find out as summer moves on and hopefully get sooner and sooner to fall practice.
Well, if you look at the quarterback situation, in a sense, we could only find out, depending on your perspective, either 1/3 or I should say 2/3 or 1/2 of the equation with Zach Calzada out of the mix right now. If you surveyed your typical college football fan when Calzada transferred to Auburn, they just figured, well, he's going to be the starting quarterback because that's the role he filled after the injury to Haynes King at Texas A&M. But even though Calzada was not on the field on Saturday, you believe that you've seen some movement in regards to the evaluation.
I do. I absolutely do. And to be honest, I walked into A-Day expecting nothing very much to change. And I usually give a prediction video of, at the end of spring, who I think is going to be the starting quarterback if there is a race. And I thought it was going to be a boring video. It's not going to be, and that'll be coming out very soon. So just kind of a little tease in terms of what I'm thinking. This race is wide open. I thought it was really a TJ Finley and Zach Calzada race. It's not. It's an every quarterback race at this point. Every guy on the field has an opportunity to be the starting quarterback, all the way from a true freshman to a transfer quarterback from LSU and TJ Finley. I think it depends on which Auburn fan you talk to on who had the best day. The consensus is that TJ Finley did TJ Finley things, but probably didn't wow anybody. He did have one touchdown he threw to Malcolm Johnson Jr., which is a new name for us in terms of talking about a lot. He's been on the team for quite some time, but just in terms of speaking his name so much. So that was impressive. He seemed very comfortable out there. I will say that. So he's been given the opportunities. He's just got to make sure he seizes those opportunities. Did he do enough on Saturday to maintain his claim as the incumbent starter? I don't know. The problem is there's a lot of guys behind him that really want that job and are really making a good case for it. Robbie Ashford is one of them. He's the guy that everybody's talking about. The versatility that he showed and the athleticism that he showed on A-Day was outstanding. There were some inaccuracies there. Thankfully, there were some actually surprisingly great catches by wide receivers. We've had a problem with drops, as you know, the last season. So that was kind of surprising to watch that happen. But that inaccuracy, you kind of forget about it because of how much of a wow factor he is as an athlete. And then even Holden Gerner, he's a true freshman, but he sure doesn't act like it. He acts like this is his job and he's going to fight for it. And I think when you look at his performance, you obviously have to speak about it in the context of he's playing with the second and third string offense and defense at that point. So naturally, you're probably going to have a quote unquote easier time. But he still did some impressive things with him with the opportunity that he had out there through a nice touchdown pass as time was almost expiring at the end of the A-Day game to get a touchdown with him and Landon King. So just in kind of summary, wide open race. Everybody's got an option at this. And each of these quarterbacks outside of Zach Calzada, because we haven't really had a chance to analyze him yet, have something that you can take away and say they will be the quarterback, and they also have something you can say, well, here's the reason that they won't be. So open for discussion at this point.
Kyle Loomis is here talking up the Auburn Tigers following the A-Day game on the Plains. You can catch his work at E2C Network right here on YouTube, and he's going to be evaluating the Auburn quarterback situation. So head on over there, check out his video. Kyle, one of the big challenges of observing and analyzing the any spring game is determining what's meaningful and what's not meaningful,
Yeah.
what's real football and can be applied to real football in the fall, and what's just for show and going through the motions and maybe working on some technique. I always thought that the wide receiver defensive back matchups on the perimeter were as close to real football as possible, because more so than anything else on the field, that's very similar to what you see in a regular game.
Right.
So as you go across the board, not just those matchups, but what was meaningful to you and what stands out?
I brought up one particular thing, wide receivers, and Malcolm Johnson Jr. was a name that stuck out to me a lot on A-Day. He's been buried in the depth chart for a little while, and we've been asking the question, you and I have talked about it previously, who's going to be the guy who wants to make a name for themselves on this roster next to Shedrick Jackson and maybe Javarius Johnson? It could be Malcolm Johnson based on the A-Day performance. Thought he showed a lot of ability out there. And actually, a lot of guys got into the mix here. Here's one thing I'm not questioning and something I can take away. The tight ends for Auburn are solid. And whether you count Landon King as a tight end or a wide receiver, the guy who made that pretty awesome grab in the end zone at the end of the A-Day game from Holden Geriner, he's just needs to be on the field. I don't care if it's a tight end. I don't care if it's a defensive back. He's just an athlete. Get him out on the field, but hopefully it's as a wide receiver or tight end. I think Brandon Frazier had a few good grabs there. In fact, he's probably the guy you're talking about at tight end, if it's not for that amazing catch by Frazier at the very end of the A-Day game. So in terms of wide receivers, there's a lot of other names. We got to see a lot of people out there getting some options, getting some throws towards them, and one or two drops. But again, it's an A-Day game. That's just kind of the thing that happens with that. Defensive back wise, kind of saw what we expected. The names are there: Nehemiah Pritchett, Jalen Simpson. Got a first look at DJ James out on the corner spot there, the guy from Oregon. There's nothing really exciting out there. The one disappointing thing that I would say was that Marquise Gilbert, the new safety, who just transferred in, he had a easy interception and he dropped it. Now, the old joke is you're a defensive back because you couldn't catch the ball. That's why they put you at defensive back. So that kind of proved to be true there. But that's just, one instance. And I'm sure that that's not going to be a huge problem for him going forward. So when you talk about those two positions right there, what you alluded to, that's kind of what stuck out to me a lot. And you talked a lot about trying to figure out what's real, what's actually a value that you can take away from this. The Auburn defense is still trying to find its identity. Saw a lot of looks. We saw the 3-4. We saw the 4-3. Saw a lot of players rotated in. The defense is really just still trying to find its identity. And maybe they do have a direction they're heading, but there's not anything that I was able to pick up on in the middle of that game. So that's a wide open discussion as well.
Anytime there's controversy around a sports team program, of course, the players and the coaches can take refuge of, once they get on the field, it's back to, hey, it's all about the sport. It's all about football. Brian Harsin has to be in a position where, he just had the administration look into the football program to determine what the issues were and the severity of those issues. So he's got to be a guy that just wakes up with an amount of pressure on him each and every day. But for one of the few times they get out onto the field in front of a crowd, and he was able to, of course, field questions from the media and have it all be about football. So that had to be a relief for him, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. Just getting back to what he's here to do is to coach football. And, there's a certain part of me that looks at him out in that field on Saturday, and you wouldn't think anything had happened. I think that's just from the sheer relief, the relief of pressure, as you were talking about, of the things outside of football that he more or less can't control, the things that unfortunately took place in the offseason. So that pressure, I think, is definitely off, and you could see that not just on him, but the players. And here's what I loved. We're talking a lot about this quarterback race. Every quarterback is going over and celebrating with the other when they do something great, all the way down to Holden Geriner at the end of the game. TJ Finley and Robbie Ashford are the first ones over to him when he throws that amazing touchdown pass and just slapping him on the head and then run it over to the wide receiver. And they're doing dance move out in the field. And obviously, there's this balance, right? In a spring game, you want to take it seriously, but it really is just kind of about getting out there, getting the flow of things and playing football and having fun. I mean, football is supposed to be fun, obviously winning national championships, But that's really what this is about, is having fun. And it was nice to see not just them, other players out there just kind of messing around with each other, kind of when the game was winding down as well. It gave you the feeling that we have moved past that point as a fan base, mainly, but as a coaching staff and players as well. This team, the mood definitely has shifted in the right direction.
Always appreciate the conversation with Kyle Loomis from E2C Network. It's all about Auburn over there, not just football, all Auburn all the time, both athletically in the classroom and the culture of the university there on E2C Network. Kyle, we appreciate you stopping by, breaking things down for us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.